We'll call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. First item on the agenda, welcome comments and announcements. I was gonna do a kind of, in this space, a level set on public participation and our responding to public participation, but since there aren't actually any members of the public here, I think we're gonna move that to November. And we'll go to the next item on the agenda, meetings and minutes. Approval of September 17th minutes. I had a couple of stray proofreading corrections that I did not get to you. Shall I go through them now?
Yeah. Are they substantive?
No. Let's do it this way. I'll hand you what I've got. Spelling of names and extra punctuation marks.
Oh my god. So
Just the highlight that's,
are they color coded?
yeah, just the highlights.
Color coded. Okay. Oh, can't believe we got that.
Did anybody else have anything on the minutes? Hearing nobody, is there a motion to approve the minutes pending some proofreading cleanup? Okay. And can I have a second?
I think I should abstain since I wasn't at this meeting.
I can say, I'm happy to second.
Okay, Brad seconds. Any further discussion of approving the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Paul, if you can hear us and vote, that would be appreciated. All those, oh, go ahead, Paul. Thank you. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. And one abstention, it is otherwise unanimous. Minutes are approved, pending those proofreading marks.
So is Bob Chapman coming tonight?
Bob is not here tonight. He will be out of town. He is out of town.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda are events and meeting announcements. Previously, I asked everybody to hold Saturday of this week, the 18th, for effective governance training by the town clerk. I have the details for you on that. Here at the townhouse on Saturday, the 18th, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. We'll have an effective governance training. The training includes items on agendas and minutes, ethics and open meetings, how to run a meeting, public records law, and hypothetical dilemmas and incidents. While this training is especially important for the chairs and the clerks, all board and committee members are encouraged to attend. And I think that our committee, especially given that we have a lot of relatively new people on board, if you can be there for it, it would be good to be there for it.
No way.
I am too. But we should both, they will eventually make a video available
Okay.
and send it to me because I've asked them to. So I will also give you that video. For everybody whose name isn't Brad, after that training, you can head over and celebrate West Concord Day. A special thing to highlight at West Concord Day is at the Fowler Library. They're going to have an art installation called River Litter, making art out of all of the things that oars and them pulled out of the river. So that should be fun to see at West Concord Day. Tuesday, October 21st, 8 to 9 a.m. at the First Parish Church in Parish Hall. October, Sustainable Concord Coffee featuring Sammy, is it Powdell? An environmental engineer working for the Concord Public Works. We'll talk about the new Stormwater Enterprise Fund. Saturday, October 25th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in North Acton at a home to be announced. If you register, Energize Acton and the town of Acton are going to host a clean energy home tour. You can register by clicking on the illustration of that event at energizeacton.org. Once you register, they'll tell you where the house is. Tuesday, October 28th, 9:30 to 11 a.m. at the 141 Kais Road, second floor. TAC is going to hold a meeting. Transportation Advisory Committee is holding a meeting. Their vendor Stantec will produce their work on and present on their work on the Concord Transportation and Mobility Study to TAC. Given that there is quite a bit of overlap with some of our mandate, and we've had quite a bit of discussion on those transportation issues, I think it would be wise if anybody is in town and available that morning to go over and be at that meeting.
So that's October 28th at what time?
9:30 a.m. At second floor Kais Road, your favorite room that you wanted this meeting to be in. And the 28th is going to be a big day for transportation. 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. that same day, Tuesday the 28th, probably at Harvey Wheeler. There will be a mega joint public meeting of TAC, Public Works, the Select Board, the Police Department, Planning Board, Townhouse staff, not us, but everybody else, meeting on transportation safety and their plans for how to prioritize public works projects when the public has an issue with something that's happened in a road, right? Is that a fair encapsulation of what people are doing at that meeting? And do we have it locked down that it's gonna be in Harvey Wheeler, or is that still to be determined?
I think it will be there, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Then, so that will be another important one. That's one that I presume will also be available virtually. If you don't want to attend 2 transportation meetings in one day. Wednesday, the 29th, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the West Concord Bike Share. Minuteman Bike Share in the towns of Acton, Concord, Lincoln, and Maynard will be holding a trick or trek ride. There'll be costume prizes. You can decorate your bike. You can bring your own bike or grab a share bike. They're going to take a 2-mile ride up the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail to the East Acton Bike Share. Presumably, once you get there, you're on your own. Thursday, November 6th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Goodwin Forum at the main library. There will be an author event with Professor Richard T.T. Foreman entitled The Ecology of Concord, the Best Ecologically Known Town on Earth. Sunday, November 2nd, sorry, I had that in the wrong place on my list. Sunday, November 2nd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Common Farm in Lincoln. Mothers Out Front Concord is hosting their 3rd annual chapter pumpkin smash event, which is a lot of fun. So if you've got a pumpkin and you don't compost in your own backyard, you should bring it to Lincoln. It's a lot of fun. Tuesday, November 18 from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Goodwin Forum at the main library. There's an author event with Layla Phillip, author of Beaverland, How One Weird Rodent Made America. Sounds like a lot of fun. They asked for registration for in-person or Zoom attendance for that one, and that opens this weekend. It's not open right now, but you can register at the library website. Wednesday, November 19th, 7:30 to 9 a.m. at 141 Kais Road on the 1st floor, and also 6 to 8 p.m. at Harvey Wheeler. TAC will hold 2 comprehensive transportation strategy public workshops. The latter time is in direct conflict with our CAC meeting that day on November 19th. But if anybody can be there that morning on the 19th at Kais Road, I think that's another one where we should have a presence there. I can't attend because that's going to be a conflict with the chair's breakfast. But if anybody can hold that date and try to be there, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
And one last meeting that I have right now, this is to save the date. I ask you to save Saturday, December 13th for the next town clerk committee member training, which is going to be all about preparing for town meeting. Even if our committee doesn't necessarily bring something to town meeting, next year, it would be good for us to have a refresh on that and optimize the way that we do town meeting. So that's all I have. Does anybody else have any events or meetings or general announcements that they wanna let everybody know about?
There's still time to get something in the town meeting.
There is.
We should figure out what we should do. If anything.
Any discussion?
That's a lot of events.
It is.
Post some of them on, actually, I didn't teach you how to post on the,
I should learn. I have
website.
admin privileges, so I could figure it out for myself, but if you
I
want,
don't think so. I think we gotta do it. Okay.
we can talk about that. If you wanna make an action item for yourself to tell me how to live, I'll it would be good synergy to get some of this stuff on there. On a
You
monthly
might wanna
basis.
wait until the system changes.
Is it about to change?
Brad would be able to say.
It's been about to change for a
Fairly
year.
soon, but it's not gonna change that much. Gonna be better.
Well, I'll leave it to your discretion, but if you put it in the agenda as an action item, I'm gonna ask you next month whether you did it. And that'll be tons of fun. Any other discussion or any other announcements?
Hey, Brad, will this list be posted of all these meetings? And when?
I wasn't necessarily looking to post it. Would you want it to be?
Well, some of them sound interesting, but I didn't get a chance to write them all down.
I can forward you the list that I'm reading off of.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Right, we're right on time then for our next item on the agenda, chair updates. Welcome to our new and seventh member, Fred Cummings. Do you wanna take a minute and introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Thank you for the welcome. I've been a Concord resident since 1975. No coincidence with the 250th, that was the 200th. We've lived in Acton for 5 years recently, but have moved back here. I live at Newbury Court, but I don't speak for them. I won't be speaking for them one way or another. I have been a state employee working for a couple different state agencies as a policy director. With a focus on energy, the DOER, state agency for the energy office, and the Renewable Energy Trust, which is now the CEC. And also done work as an energy consultant for state and federal planning studies and things like that. Also worked for utilities a little bit. So I enjoy working on these issues.
Well, welcome. Should we kind of all introduce ourselves to you as well? Bob had
I wanna
Found that
add what
helpful.
Fran said, though. Fran, was on the Climate Action Advisory Board. When the first climate action plan was written,
Yes, 2018 and 2019.
and, so,
I had to leave because we moved to Acton sort of in the middle of that process, so we had a consultant on board and had discussed a lot of things, but I don't get any credit or other kind of feedback for the actual plan, so.
Well, we'll try to get you credit for the next one this coming year. Shall we go around and introduce ourselves?
Sure, I'm Shelley Carlin, also fairly new, been doing this less than 6 months, so.
Hi, Shelley.
I do lots of things with the schools and fill here and there,
and,
Brad.
I know Fran, I don't think well, you look familiar, I think we must have met Brad Hubbard Nelson. Been on the committee for, me. Have we been?
I'm Jack Wonder.
Oh, you're Jack, that's
Yeah,
why you look
yeah.
familiar, I wanna
Yes.
talk to you, I'm glad to meet you. I was on the MCAN board,
Okay.
I was the first.
Right, yeah.
So we have that in common,
Cool.
a lot in common. That's why you look familiar, I was like, who's that guy? Okay.
Brad Dye, I'm a stay-at-home dad. Before I was a stay-at-home dad, I worked for 14 years in the legislature, and now I'm happily separated from that. And
Yeah,
Do you wanna?
okay, and Megan Smuda, deputy town manager, we
I
met.
met you, yes.
Yeah, and Shannon McAndrew, I also work in the town manager's office.
And Paul and Catherine, do you two want to say a quick hello and introduction as well? Please.
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm Catherine Hopkins. Sorry, my audio is not great. Wish I could be there in person. I think this is my first year. I came on when Brad Chair came on, so losing track of time, but been in Concord for about 5 years, lived in California before that. Was working a lot with Mothers Out Front before I got recruited to this, and yeah, welcome. Just excited. I know, Fran, you've been working with the network geothermal work, which I really appreciate your expertise and keen eye on that work.
Yeah, sure. My name is Paul Kirshen. Presently, I'm affiliated with both Tufts University and UMass Boston. I'm a civil engineer, and I mainly work on adaptation to climate change.
And missing in action right now is Bob Shatton. I guess you'll.
Bob, I know a little bit.
Great.
And Fran, could you pass that plate
No.
back to?
No, I can,
Our visitor, just to have one, you have to have one of those before you talk, it's pumpkin float. Really good.
Next item on our, I should also say under this before we move on to the next thing. Thank you to those of you who have gotten me a name of another prospective member. We are currently fully subscribed with 7 members, but part of the exercise here is to ensure that we have some prospects in our pipeline so that we don't end up with vacancies should something happen to one of us, should one of us move to Acton or something like that. So those of you who have not yet got me a name, you know who you are. I told you last month, give me a name. It does not take this long to get a name to me, so please do it. Next
Speaking
on,
of that, on the website, the expiration, there's the chart, the list of members, and the expiration dates all have, years starting with 2028, 2029, and I'm surprised there's not, any 2026, 2027s.
yes, there are people who expire 27, not next year. And that was an issue that the assistant town clerk has pointed out to us.
Yeah.
As something that's not optimal and should be rectified. And our method for rectifying that was that Bob was supposed to be an extended term in 29. Fran is an extended term that will expire in 29. So those are basically taking the place of the people who would expire in 26. We're giving them the extra year, so they're gonna be on for 4 years. However, unfortunately, Bob, there was a mess up with the appointment, and so Bob is 28 instead of 29. So the next person that comes on, we're gonna get them onto that 29, and it'll eventually resolve itself. So that we're appropriately staggered. So there's a plan in place.
I think my paperwork's at 28 also.
It's not difficult to correct that,
We do need to correct that,
yeah,
if
we can do that.
that's the case.
Yeah,
Okay. I had a whole conversation with somebody. about
yeah,
that.
we can correct that.
Okay. Yeah, please do, let's tighten that up.
Yeah.
That here. Okay, status updates on old action items and old business from September 17 agenda. I actually don't have anything to update or read into an update from last agenda. I still have 3 things from the month before that I was supposed to do this past month that I didn't do. 2 of them are getting things to Megan. Apologize again for not getting you the stuff that I said I would. I'll get on that fast. But I don't have any action items to report on from last month's agenda. Does anybody else have anything from last month's agenda? I think the only thing that there would be would be the school rail trail link, and I believe Shelley, you said there's nothing substantive on that.
That's ongoing.
Yeah, okay.
We're waiting for a decision from the school committee.
So maybe we'll put that on the agenda for November, just so everybody can be in the loop.
Sure.
Okay.
Follow.
So. Just as a comment. I'd like to, see well. I don't know, I think it'd be nice to see the draft agenda before it gets posted. Even a day before it gets posted, be able to suggest items that we hadn't remembered.
I've been doing that.
You have?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
It might be helpful to give a little more than a day lead time. Generally, you were giving more like a week and I had been tighter on
Okay,
that. So I can give a little more time.
I haven't noticed it, okay.
I have been very stingy on the turnaround time on those. So I'll try to be better on that. Do you, Brad, want to give us a debrief on Sunday?
Sure. So. The event went, quite well. So this was on, September 21st afternoon, at First Parish Church. And, we had a group of, a handful of us that met a few times, at the end, a couple times a week, when, the agenda, the outreach, the, things we need to have in place. So First Parish made it very, very easy. They had provided a custodian for a couple of hours, who I paid with a check, and I probably should maybe submit that for reimbursement. If the town would do that. It was small money, so it wasn't a big issue, but they did the sound system, provided all the tables, etc. So that was nice. We had a great lineup of speakers, which Catherine led off with the initial speaker. It went very well, and it went timely. They were short, few minute intro and about the town and student from the school and several testimonials. It wasn't over, it went very well. Everybody was very helpful, lots of volunteers. The one thing which we could have done better is more promotion. And the trouble is with an event like this, how do you get other people to come? I mean, if you have students doing art projects or something like that, you could get their parents to come, but it's really hard on an event like Sunday to get non-choir people to show up. So I was, we didn't have that many, but it still is good for building and strengthening community. You get to see people you know a little bit from the other groups and think about how you can work together. CMLP table did get some, I think, coaching signups, perhaps, they were, and they were busy. We had the climate games, which got some fair amount of use. Let's see. I think we had about between 100 and 150 people there at the peak. Not bad. But it would always be good to have lots of new faces, and that's the difficult thing with this sort of event. We can do it again another year, wouldn't be hard. We have to decide if it's worth the effort. Comparing it to the climate fair we had at CCHS a year before, a year and a half before. Quite a bit less attendance just because of the short time scale of planning, but also I think that event was able to bring in more diverse crowd of people, perhaps.
That event was also billed as the successor to the one that we had done, I think, 2 years before,
Yeah,
on the lawn of the library.
right.
So there was also some like comeback ness to it,
Yeah,
whereas this was new.
yeah, I'm glad we did it. Even a simple event, takes a bunch of work. And, but it's fun, so, we should keep it up, I think. Now you were there, what did you do?
I thought it was a good opportunity for everybody to share ideas. Because everybody has their sort of niche project that they work on, even within the climate community, and so it was a really great way to sort of reach out and touch base with people you don't normally see. Plus, it was festive.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, there's a series of those events all over the place, right? I
Yeah.
mean, could you say we were one of the 999 Sunday events around the world or something?
Probably, I don't remember the number. I wasn't paying much attention to all the other ones. Did you go to one, Jack?
Yeah, up in Middlebury, Vermont, there's a small one, it was enjoyable, it was nice, it was fun.
Was McGibbon there?
No, I think he's in New York City.
Did you have more to add, Catherine?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, it was part of a global movement and event. And so unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the debrief, the Concord group debrief. And I went to some of the planning meetings, but not nearly as much as Brad and the others who put, a lot of great effort into it. But I was curious to see if we had any rolled up stats around kind of national and global attendance and next steps and whether this would be a, first annual or, and then thinking about all the different events that we do in town, yeah, just kind of cost benefit analysis around this. Cause I really love the idea of it. And kind of the messaging and just kind of the positivity. And I was really impressed at how many tables were there. Cause I was sort of worried like, oh, first of all, there's so many different events. There's some in other towns. It's, kind of not enough lead time to advertise, but also Sunday afternoon, people are doing other things. It ended up being a gorgeous day and I think it was really successful. And I'm really glad that there was many vendors that came out as they did. But, wasn't huge attendance, but I think it was good for what the lead time was. But, I enjoyed it and, thanks for including me in the speaking. And I think, I would advocate to do it again if it's going to be something that is a first annual for us.
Okay.
We'll have to think deeply on whether to host it on the equinox or on a Sunday.
Right. Well, somebody else is gonna decide that.
Any further discussion on the Sunday debrief? Hearing none, we'd be in line to move on to the next item on the agenda, the deputy town manager's update.
Thank you. I put a written report in, out to you all, I think, that hopefully you received. So I'll just run through a few of the items here. One is, an event that, Brad and, former member Jerry and I attended on Friday, which was a, Concord Free Public Library Sustainability Plan Strategy Session. It was Friday afternoon of long weekend, at the Fowler Library. And it was excellent, I thought. It was, I have not been involved, I think Eric was before me, in the crafting of this, this climate plan for the library. But it was really impressive to see how, kind of lofty the library's goals are and how seriously they take their role in being, a primary sustainability resource to the community. It was very impressive. There are members there from, I think the trustees, staff. And I think friends of, I'm not sure, but and then a couple climate people, so. It will be great to see what, I think goals they land on and think about, have that for when we're setting our goals in kind of tasks and action items, because I think I thought that they were focusing more on their buildings but they're really not. It's like, how can they be an education hub? How can they really embody sustainability as a library, as a critical part of our community. So it was really great. I also have an update in here about our V2X school bus charging. There was a meeting recently that I attended to kind of get a project update on this. So I have some details in here, but basically Concord Public Schools is working with the light plant to install a bi-directional V2G, V2X fast charger at the Knox Trail School Bus Depot. And so this is from Mass CEC, a demonstration program. They're providing, it was a grant through them. So that,
V2X means vehicle to anything? Okay,
For everything.
okay.
glad you're here, Fran. So they were talking about some of the kind of project details and installation, but I mean, I guess the big takeaway is we're on track. And you know, the project is continuing to move forward. I do have some big updates from the MVP action grant. This is our SUASCO climate or you know, watershed effort. This, we have a contract executed for a $450,000 grant over 2 years. We had a kickoff meeting this October, and this is with our MVP team person, who's a kind of our Northeast coordinator. And we also worked with ORS and MAPC. So we'll be working as a group with the town of Concord, myself and Shannon. And I went out to Haydenville last week to go to the grant celebration on Thursday, October 9th, and the Lieutenant Governor did a presentation out there. And I didn't know, I was talking to Brad Dye about it. We got invited because we were awarded this major grant. They're having this kind of site visit and celebration in Western Mass. So it felt like I didn't know what the speaking program was going to be exactly, or if they were going to call out Concord. They didn't, but it was still extremely worthwhile because they highlighted one of the projects, which was a rewilding, a 9-hole golf course out there in Williamsburg. And in 2023, there was significant flooding out in that part of the state, and it was really impactful and extremely damaging. And so this project is looking, I guess, in this golf course, I think it's called Beaver Brook. They had moved a stream or a brook, you know, to build this golf course. And so the effort is to replant with native species, kind of figure out what to do with the waterway, rewild this, and have this area be able to absorb, you know, kind of future flooding and be a real resource. So it was excellent. We saw herring when we walked around. So it was really nice, and it was nice to meet some of the other awardees. The focus was on the rural communities in Western Mass, but it was helpful to hear the Lieutenant Governor talk about the administration's focus on prevention and trying to get ahead of some of these, you know, climate disasters, and their commitment to really funding that work. And that's part of the grant. So that was very exciting. So we are meeting bi-monthly, twice a month now with this project team. And Paul actually joined us at our meeting today, which was fairly helpful. And we're meeting to talk about the scope of work. And there's a lot of kind of administrative coordination between all of the parties. So Shannon and I have our hands full kind of setting that up. And then there'll be more opportunities for public input and coordination with other towns, and I'll be sure to brief you all on that. I have an update on decarbonization roadmap. I have been working closely with Power Options. I've sent them all the data that I had, and I heard back that they had a few questions on a few of our buildings. So I've been working with my colleagues in the building department and in the library to collect the information that Power Options is looking for. At one point, she was thinking they might need to do a site visit to help assess some of our infrastructure, but I don't know if that's needed anymore because she felt pretty good about the information I sent over. So that's moving forward. I just wanted to mention in my kind of day-to-day work. I occasionally meet with different institutions, and in the past month I've met with folks from both Concord Academy and the Fenn School, and they have folks that are focused on sustainability. For Concord Academy, that wasn't the purpose of our conversation, but it came up and we talked about this MVP grant and how the students would be interested in potentially collaborating and thinking about, the river and how they can, help with resilience. And then I did meet with the sustainability manager at the Fenn School, and she was talking about, some of their master planning and thinking about how they can incorporate sustainability in their plans. So just trying to kind of keep our networks open as I'm meeting folks that are in the community, and think about how they can all contribute to the work that we're all trying to do. Wrapping up here, I did send along an update on the middle school solar project in the or I think Shannon did in the email. It's a slideshow that our CMLP director put together. I have a list of bullets here, but I think there isn't really much to say since the last update, I don't think. They are still vetting the bidders and working with town council. I don't believe at this point they have selected a firm, but that project is still continuing, and when I have a further update, I will give it. And I think the last thing I wanted to mention, I think every update I say, I talk about how I need to do the green communities data, and I've been talking about how that's on my list. I did do some of it this week, so reading that into the record here. And I'm appreciating my colleagues across the town who are helping collect that data to help input it and make sure we have up-to-date information in our MEI reporting. A little bit of a learning curve for me the first time I'm doing it, but we have really good partners at the state that have office hours and are very helpful. So that deadline is I think like November 7th, so I'm trying to get in ahead of that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Are we talking about the middle school solar later, or is that this?
Just an FYI.
I do have it listed later. If you want to get into it now, we could. Or we can wait. We're currently a little bit behind schedule, so it might be better to do it last.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just ask you and Megan really quickly, is there anything that you heard at this library meeting that sounds like an action item or a way for us to be helpful to them?
What do you think, Brad?
Was it, I'm sorry,
At the library meeting,
yeah,
is there anything that we can be doing to be helpful to them or?
yeah, we are helpful.
Take on?
Just by attending. They wanna know what's going on in town and stuff like that, but we've been supporting that the whole time. So their their plan has been, and they're trying to figure out whether they can fund it to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is a nice ambitious goal. It'd be great if they could do it, but it has to do with the ability of the trustees to provide the capital to, and it's, they could do one of the libraries at a time. Something like that, but so some of the discussion was, are we painting the trustees into a corner or something like that? Something, it's challenging, but they're committed. It's good, it's a good group.
Was there any kind of talk about next meeting or anything like that that we should know about?
Next meeting will be December. It's kind of quarterly at this point.
Any other discussion on the town managers, deputy town managers update? Go ahead.
I thought it was interesting the mention of CA and FAN, and of course, the library is another nonprofit. We have these sort of potentially powerful nonprofits in town who are presumably all, ambitious to do something, but they're all thinking within their own campuses. Is there any conceivable way we could coordinate them or set them in competition with one another, or otherwise you know, sort of mobilize what they're doing or learn from it, maybe for others in town who could see that there are these people who are out front.
Right. And as there have been other, like the Emerson umbrella. Fully
Right.
electric,
Right,
they just raised money and did it. So but you're right, to. How to build a synergy between those projects. And they're not thinking of networking the library and Concord Academy.
well, that did occur to me, might be one thing that you could discuss if some of those folks got together. I guess Middlesex is maybe a little farther away, but, you know, there are some significant.
There are conversations, I mean, I know that there was an educational program last year that Eric participated in with Middlesex and I think Concord Academy, and it was a weekend fair, you're probably there, Brad. But I mean, I think for their campus building, yeah, they are all kind of doing their own master planning. And they are at different levels with kind of age of buildings and like where it kind of fits priority wise, I think. So yeah, I think that there could be more coordination. And so I think my first step is trying to get to know who everyone is.
Good, yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. That's why I kind of mentioned it, because it's like, what is this? We are, you know, I think lucky to have a lot of different institutions in this community. And they all really bring a lot of unique benefits from, you know, the hospital to or the schools. To others, arts programs. So yeah, how are we all connecting and sharing best practices and working towards the same goals? I think
Right.
is valuable.
Do they have master plans?
Do they have them?
Plans for sustainability?
Yes, I think that Fen has one. And I believe Concord Academy is working on, no, I don't know if it's a sustainability plan, but like a campus plan. So I feel like, you know, we're doing our climate plan, like people are doing those, but they should also be baked into any master plan that anyone's doing. I think so. But yeah, I think they're at different, those schools are at different places in their planning.
Any other discussion of the deputy town manager's update? Hearing none, we'll be in line for presentation from MCAN. Do you need to hook in technology? How do you wanna?
I can do that, yeah, I have my laptop here.
If you want me to, I could show your presentation online.
Yeah,
That would make your job easy, because you sent it earlier.
Yep.
Did you get the second?
I have the second, I have the
updated
updated one, I can do that.
okay.
Oh, you have the update.
Yeah.
I really just took off one slide so I could even just skip it on the first one, so. Either
Let
one.
us sit up and use one of these mics.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Oh, the mics are not live,
Oh, well.
but that's okay, still join us.
Whatever. Should I go over here or just sit down at the table?
Whatever's comfortable for you is fine with us.
Okay. Oh, I'll go over here. That works for me. But yeah, hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me here today to speak with you about embodied carbon. My name is Jack Lundgren, and I am directing the embodied carbon initiatives at MCAN, the Massachusetts Climate Action Network. I think at least most of you are familiar with MCAN, but just in case, we're a 25-year-old organization that is dedicated to helping local climate activists confront the climate crisis in Massachusetts, and particularly in their local communities. We have a network that was supported over 5,000 advocates. If you don't already receive our occasional communications, I would encourage you to visit our website and to sign up to stay in touch. Also, which might be of interest to some of you, is that we have a group, the Better Buildings Advocates Group, which is a space that's dedicated to decarbonizing the built environment through sharing knowledge, through networking opportunities, and through coordinating advocacy initiatives. I think the best way to get plugged into that is really to just reach out to me. My email is here, you speak to me, and I'll get you plugged in to receive those additional communications, calls to action, and then an invitation to our monthly Zoom call. But turning to the topic at hand tonight, embodied carbon. For the past 3 years, MCAN has been greatly focused in our advocacy and our educational initiatives on the crucial need to minimize embodied carbon. So I'm super excited to share with you all a little bit about one of our initiatives that we've been working on to help local communities address embodied carbon through their municipal RFPs, requests for proposals. But before I go into that, I want to just take a step back to sort of explain the context and the great need to address embodied carbon. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Which of course is understanding what embodied carbon is. And if you don't know what embodied carbon is, that's okay. It's I think definitely a bit less intuitive to visualize than operational carbon, which we've all become quite accustomed to thinking about the energy to operate lights and heating and cooling in buildings. Embodied carbon, on the other hand, is a little less apparent, but once you see it, it's really hard to unsee it. Specifically, it's the greenhouse gas emissions that are caused by the manufacturing, the transportation, the installation, the maintenance, and then the disposal of construction materials for buildings, roads, and other infrastructure. And importantly, the vast majority, about 75% of those emissions are here in the product stage. And that is the extraction of raw materials, the transportation of those resources to a factory, and then the manufacturing at that factory into construction materials. And this means that embodied carbon is largely a sunk cost. Once these construction materials are created, those emissions are up in the atmosphere even before a road or building or other piece of infrastructure comes into use. So really it means that embodied carbon needs to be addressed now in the short term, unlike operational carbon, which, for example, can be reduced over time by, for example, bringing more renewable sources of energy online onto the grid. Embodied carbon really needs to be addressed in the short term to address and to meet our long-term climate goals. And it's a crucial part of the overall climate puzzle that is hard to quantify, which makes it even more difficult to really visualize and to deal with. I like this chart up here because I think it does a good job sort of visualizing the magnitude of embodied carbon. It is the global greenhouse gas emissions breakdown by sector in 2019. And importantly, it highlights that the industrial production of infrastructure materials is 10% of that total, while the industrial production of building materials is 7%. That's 17% total. Compare that to building operations, 18%. That's your operational carbon. But then also remember that embodied carbon is also, to a much lesser extent, contributes to transportation, to waste, to land use change and forestry, which means that at the least embodied carbon is just as important to operational carbon. And there's studies that have confirmed this. For example, the World Green Building Council, they have estimated that from 2019 to 2050, about half of emissions from new construction will be from embodied carbon. And importantly, for states and countries that have had success and will have success in decarbonizing their energy grids, that proportion will be even higher. For example, the state of California from 2024 to 2045, an estimated 70% of emissions in new construction, 70% of emissions from new construction in the state of California is estimated to be from embodied carbon, 70%. And that's all just to really lay out the whole magnitude of this crucial problem. Next slide, please. So what is Massachusetts doing to address this? On the screen, you can see a table of the jurisdictions that have some embodied carbon policies adopted. I'm not going to go into the specifics of each one, but happy to return to it later if there is time and questions. I think this is informative, could be informative to a town like Concord that might be thinking about potentially adding some embodied carbon considerations into their climate action plan. But anyways, this table was to show that there has been some innovation, some experimentation with embodied carbon policy at the municipal level and to a small degree in the stretch code, specialized opt-in code. And this is to kind of show that there's two main approaches that have been sort of targeted here. You can see that Boston, Newton, and Cambridge, they have adopted some reporting of embodied carbon into their regulations, but have not really added any limits on embodied carbon into those regulations, kind of trying to struggle on how to actually regulate that. At the town of Brookline and also for the stretch code as well, there is some mandating and some incentivizing of using low embodied carbon materials. We'll go to the next slide, please. So what is the state doing? At the state level, the Embodied Carbon Intergovernmental Coordinating Council, the ECICC, has been meeting since the beginning of this year to develop recommendations for embodied carbon policy. They are due to release a report on recommendations January 2026. Last month, they had a second public hearing, a second of 3 legislatively mandated public hearings where they unveiled several draft proposal recommendations. And again, I'm not going to go into specifics here, happy to return to it if there's time and interest. But to summarize, the council is moving towards having the reporting of embodied carbon for large state projects, and then using that data to eventually mandate some embodied carbon limits, either at the project size or at the material level. And this is all really to show, sorry, you can go to the next slide. I guess what I was going to say there is that those recommendations are going to be targeted towards the executive agencies, particularly Mass DOT, DCAM, and then take the ball to the legislature. And that really is all to say that there is progress, there's work, there is momentum on embodied carbon policy in Massachusetts. But we are far away from creating the comprehensive regulatory framework that is required to efficiently and effectively manage embodied carbon. So that goes back to the sunk cost of embodied carbon, which I brought up at the beginning of this. There are projects being planned today, there's construction happening today, there's projects being planned tomorrow, in the next few days, next few months. And those are all going to have a large amount of embodied carbon emissions associated with them. So what MCAN has done is created an approach to deal with these projects that are happening in the short term.
Are you following what, like, is Europe ahead of us and you're learning from?
Europe,
What some
particularly
countries are there?
Canada, they are ahead of us.
Okay, so they're okay, figuring out how to do this.
Absolutely, and some states are a little bit ahead of Massachusetts, but that has all been tied into our approach here, which I'll speak to, and go into the next slide, please. So our approach here has been to develop model language with embodied carbon requirements for municipal request for proposals, RFPs, for architectural and engineering services. On a project by project basis, advocates can take this model language to the appropriate municipal officials with the goal of getting it incorporated into upcoming RFPs to ensure that municipal construction minimizes embodied carbon. This work was the product of extensive research looking at embodied carbon policy here, also Canada, Europe, other states, and with collaboration with a lot of qualified professionals. And it's been developed to be designed so that you don't need to know a lot about embodied carbon to use it. It's developed so that it can be hopefully directly, easily incorporated into many RFPs, where so that its incorporation would help a selection committee do its due diligence in selecting the prospective design team that's best suited, best capable of delivering low embodied carbon designs.
Yeah.
Go on to the next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the specifics of the language, but rather to just give a rough outline. Happy to talk about more the technical language and anything of that nature if you have time and interest. But again, it's supposed to be easy to use for folks even who don't have a strong background in embodied carbon. But essentially, our model language is broken down into 3 sections. We have our purpose and definitions. I think that picture's a little out of date, but it is showing that, you know, our purpose definitions, it provides some of the introductory context and then some definitions of their technical terms. Then we have the narrative requirements and then the design commitment. And we have 2 versions of these. One version is for smaller projects, those expect to be less than 50,000 square feet. And then one version for larger, those expected to be greater than or equal to 50,000 square feet. To go on next, please.
I'm sorry, could I just interrupt to ask, would this be for like a town building?
Absolutely, so
Or
this-
would it be designed for anything that was like new buildings constructed in town but not by the town?
This has been developed in mind with public construction,
Right.
just because the public construction process has designated opportunities for public engagement. It's easy to get advocates, but theoretically it can work for any RFPs. It just.
Right, but one would have to make it such that the planning department required it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not focused on that yet. I get it, good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's starting there, hopefully to expand to other areas too, that we can too. But our narrative section is really the place for the prospective design teams, the proposals to make the case for why they are the best to minimize embodied carbon for the project. For example, you can see in the picture here that we asked the proposals to identify experience in reducing embodied carbon for similar projects and also to identify the experience with certain design methodologies that like life cycle assessment. Slide please. Our design commitment section, again, a lot of research went into this. We drew a lot of inspiration from LEED version 5. LEED version 5 was released earlier this year, and they introduced the first embodied carbon requirements for that program. Our two versions here are each adapted heavily from two specific LEED version 5 credits. And to summarize them, our version for smaller projects asks the design team to measure the upfront embodied carbon on the project for certain materials, and then to identify at least the 3 largest sources of embodied carbon, and then to evaluate for minimization strategies, a hotspot analysis report. For the larger projects, we're asking for a more rigorous full building life cycle assessment, and then to pursue a reduction target of 30% less embodied carbon from a user model baseline building representing a business as usual scenario. That 30% there is, from our current understanding, it's ambitious, but often achievable without having to go through a radical or make significant changes to the overall design. We drew from case studies that were examined by the Rocky Mountain Institute, who they looked at certain case studies in a 2021 study, and they found that a 19 to 46% reduction in buildings was possible with a 0 to 1% cost premium attached. We also looked at the recent 2023-2024 embodied carbon reduction challenge that happened here in Massachusetts, put on by Built Environment Plus and Mass CEC, that saw leading architectural and engineering firms submit submissions to this challenge, and they were able to reduce embodied carbon up to 58% there. Next slide, please. So just to sort of summarize, the benefits that we see in this approach here is that it deals with the sort of sunk cost of embodied carbon while we get more comprehensive, holistic regulation out there by tackling embodied carbon now. It embeds embodied carbon thinking as early as possible into the process, which is the crucial time period for identifying these large reductions in cost-effective strategies. Further down the road, it's possible to incorporate embodied carbon reduction strategies, but it is often at more cost, more time, more energy at that point. And also it lends maximum flexibility to the design team by asking them to pursue a life cycle assessment, which is a more holistic approach to a building, allowing them to make an individualized strategy for each project instead of telling them that they have to work with certain low embodied carbon materials or they have to pursue a certain strategy over another. Next slide, please. So that barrage of information is the gist of it all. And I just want to thank you again for your attention and climate activism. And before I take any questions, hopefully we have a little bit of time. I just want to leave you with the daily the CO2 atmospheric concentration that was reported today at 424.44 parts per billion. If you are familiar with 350.org or 350 mass, I trust you understand the significance of that number. So with that, thank you.
A lot of our emission reductions work is specified in terms of we've got a baseline year for emissions.
Right,
And we want to cut emissions by a certain percentage by a certain year compared to that baseline. Is it NCAN's position that that kind of rubric for emissions reduction is invalid if it's not taking embodied carbon into account?
I don't think so, because we're talking about overall total emissions, and I think not, I think. Considering it embodied carbon to the best that you can is always helpful, but I don't think it outright invalidates it.
Right, I mean, we have things in our climate action plan which are not specifically reducing emissions by installing heat pumps and greening electricity. This is an additional piece. We'll say that, so in our middle school, it was just finished last year,
Right.
embodied carbon was discussed a lot.
Mhm.
And now I wanna go back and see, where they came out, I'm gonna talk to Charlie about that. Because they were very much focused on that. They did a net zero compatible school once the system, solar array is installed, as is talked about.
Oh, cool.
And, so if I'm compare that with your, the RFP. There might be something good in what they did
Mhm.
that, could feedback you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, I'd love to hear about that.
You mentioned lead five. Is lead five is a new thing. If someone just used lead five to build your next buildings. Does that kind of capture it, or is that too onerous a requirement, an idea?
It does a little bit, it's. What we have for our smaller projects, that halfway there is a lead requirement for lead version 5. I'll say that lead version 5 is out, it's been out since April, but so is lead version 4, which has not been sunsetted yet. And it goes until March of next year. So projects starting now can still pick between them. Lead version 5 does have this upfront sort of life cycle assessment that's required now to do that hotspot analysis. But for these large projects, it's really definitely more effective to have like a life cycle assessment over the entire life cycle, the whole building life cycle assessment, so. Yes, but not definitely, and not to the great extent that we think that they should.
I'm wondering, so this is requirements on the architecture for a building. Now, when we build our new public safety building, that'll be a building and it'll be some hardscape as well. And I'm wondering, does the architecture just I'm wondering whether the builders, people that actually come and build as low embodied carbon as it is designed, but I guess. That's kind of a big question.
Well, I think. One of the things the design team could do is specify for those products that they want those contractors to use the lowest embodied carbon possible. For example, they want the designers to, or they want the construction teams to procure the concrete ready mixes with the lowest global warming potential possible. So that's something you can do further down the line, but you're dealing with design that's already set, and the really, I think, benefit of this approach is like having the design team take time to really optimize that design to the best of their ability.
So, we have, a road construction sort of, thing coming to fruition soon about public works. So how could this be applied to, road construction?
So this is really just buildings. Infrastructure is different. I think infrastructure might be a little easier too, because you're really not building something that's complicated. Asphalt is huge. Asphalt is a huge source of emissions, and being able to, for example, procure asphalt that is less carbon intensive than average. Not all mixes are created equal. you can request the environmental product declaration to determine how exactly carbon intense that material is, and then just being able to identify those suppliers that have the lower embodied carbon version, that is super helpful.
Okay, yeah, our climate action plan, we could potentially do both, we could. The town put it ask the town to put in the policy of evaluating embodied carbon on roads and buildings before we spend the money.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot more of a conversation around concrete, there's been a lot more, like Mass DEC has really put a lot of money into the availability of environmental product declarations, which are like kind of like nutrition labels for these materials to show how their different effects on the environment, such as climate change. And so there's the ecosystem for that is a lot more built out. It's a lot easier to find those mixes.
Catherine, you had your hand up a moment ago. Do you have something for us?
Well, I was just gonna ask about steel and just generally certification programs and how they play in. I mean, I guess you probably as a town can't regulate buildings to only procure, certified whatever, carbon friendly materials, for lack of a better word. But I know like responsible steel is a thing where there's sort of certifications you can get. So I'm just wondering if there is some way of just sort of ensuring at some level of kind of vetting the process without kind of scaring away, developers.
Right, yeah, I don't think a specific town can regulate materials for private development. They can certainly use it for their own procurement policy, which is what Brookline has done by requiring concrete that's like 90% of the average baseline for the global warming potential. And there are resources that I could definitely send you all and follow up with that sort of show the averages for different materials that are produced in North America. It shows that average, so if you're able to get to the environmental product declaration, EPDs of materials, you can compare to see exactly how better or worse they are than that average.
Why couldn't we try to regulate that in private development?
I think that's just Massachusetts laws.
So we're part right now of a 10-town pilot to get rid of methane in new construction.
Right.
We received the approbation of the legislature and the governor to do that. Could a town conceivably pursue that kind of standard on embodied carbon and throw a home rule petition at the legislature and see what happens?
I think we'd have to go that route too. I think that would be definitely a way to do it.
Those don't always go very far.
They don't, they usually don't. But the one on methane did.
There wasn't a home rule petition.
There were home rule petitions, and the pressure from the home rule petitions made the thing happen.
We could wait for Brookline to figure it out and then do it.
Like that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This is something to think about and to figure out how we can make it fit. Certainly, even without a mandate in an active climate plan, we can maybe encourage folks in the townhouse to start pursuing this anyway, even if you don't have to. Any last questions, parting shots?
I just want to
Thank
say,
you.
yeah, thank you. And the 70% number you gave for California was actually pretty encouraging for me because it means that they've taken care of all the other carbon emission sources, right?
Yes, they've done a good job in carbonizing embodied carbon.
Yeah.
And sticks out as a higher proportion, but exactly, yeah.
It's a hopeful note. I don't think.
Well, I actually do have a question. Who's done a good job of quantifying the embodied carbon emissions that we would like add on top of our, other carbon emissions in doing an emissions inventory?
Right, yeah, that's really hard to quantified, because it's, most of those, I think, inventories are about, the carbon that's emitted from the state. And less so stuff that's like produced.
Right, this would be like a scope 3 or 4 or
That's scope
something.
3. I think
You can't do it, you just have to design it better.
I don't know if there's like states or really government that have been able to do that super effectively. I can point you to the Carbon Leadership Forum, that chart that I had there, that pie chart, that was from them, they have some good resources, and they're an advocacy and research nonprofit, so that's focused just on embodied carbon, so there's some good resources there for trying to understand the measuring of it a little better.
I sort of see at least a page in our carbon plan update on this, and we have to have some numbers, some way to get your arms around how does this relate to all the other emissions.
Yeah, because it's split over the whole life cycle, it's hard to
Right,
really drill down on that.
And thinking in terms of emission reduction. If we can measure it accurately, then we can prove out our reduction of it over time, but we have to ensure that we've got some kind of measurement. And that we're committed to it.
And that's been sort of the approach of the municipalities that are on the leading edge, like Boston, their net zero carbon zoning reform that came out this summer, and then like Cambridge and Lake Leiden. And then hopefully we'll see what the state does when they release their report soon.
Excellent, well, thank you.
Yeah.
We do need to move on to our discussion of the climate action plan. Should we pass around the fudge and give everybody some sugar so we can have good energy for this conversation? Well, what I need to say is, I want some more fudge. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna take off, but happy to follow up on any of your questions and to continue the discussion, however anyone would like to.
Yeah.
are you coming out?
Of course, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Oh, Ben,
So Megan, you
Yeah.
wanna get us started on the RFP status? Maybe let's refresh for everybody exactly where we are
Sure.
and then talk about these questions.
So we issued a request for proposals for our climate action and resilient plan update on September 22nd. Proposals are due on Friday, October 24th. I have two kind of pieces that I wanted to discuss with you today. One is that we built in, as we typically do, an opportunity for proposers to ask questions about our RFP. And we did receive some questions that I'd like to kind of go over. I gave myself some ambitious deadlines in this document. And gave a pretty short turnaround for when I promised I would have the questions answered and dead them, and that is tomorrow. We're trying to keep this moving, pretty quickly, half with the holiday on Monday, but we're in an okay spot, so I'll go over that in just a moment, but in working on this, I had a few other colleagues look this over, at the timeline when I was asking folks to participate in the review panel. And I realized that also my sequencing for the review was a little too ambitious too. So basically, so the deadline for the proposals is Friday the 24th.
Right.
And I was asking, I was gonna ask the group who's gonna work on this, who haven't been appointed yet by the town manager, I'm trying to assemble based on our conversations here. To talk about them on Monday, so it was a Friday to Monday turnaround.
Yeah.
Which is not really realistic, and it might be okay if we just get it 1 or 2, but if we get many. I'd be asking volunteers and staff to turn that around a little quicker than probably reasonable. So the good news is. We're issuing an addendum tomorrow anyway, and I'm not gonna change the deadline for the proposals. What I am planning to do is to change some of the other dates. Including when we may be asking for an interview, which is an optional component. And also when they could expect to find out if they were awarded the proposal. We need to, the group reviewing these is giving a recommendation to the town manager that would be captured in a memo, and then the town manager needs some time to look that over and make a decision, so. We're keeping the deadline the same. But I think we will be doing the review. Probably October 30th, could be the 29th or the 30th. And then potential interviews on Monday, November 3rd, and then award the proposal. On November 13th is what we're looking at. So in summary, it wouldn't change too much for the applicants. Other than the interview date, which is a possibility. It would still have the same deadline, but it would give us on the back end a little more time to thoroughly review these. And it's not issuing another addendum, so I feel like it's okay. The other thing is these questions. So I think we sent out the questions. I have a couple of hard copies if that's helpful. If you don't have this, you got it? Everyone's got it. Sorry to put them up. And I'd like to run through these. So number one. The RFP says that stakeholder engagement is not listed as an individual task, but then on page 13, it's specifically listed in task 2. So that's, an error on my part. Can the town confirm that stakeholder engagement is a specific task, or it should be integrated throughout? And I think it should be integrated throughout. And so Shannon helped put together some draft answers here. I'd be curious what your thoughts are.
That makes sense.
I thought it made sense.
Good.
Okay, great, thank you. Got it. Some are easier than others, that was a medium one, so. 2, this is a hard one, and this is a Bob question, so Bob, when you watch this back. This one is a question that says, can the town please clarify what it's hoping to accomplish with a carbon valuation and economic analysis? Is the town looking to sell credits or participate in a voluntary market, and if so, is the town comfortable knowing that any credit sold is not one that you can technically count as an achievement for your reduction targets? So this is something that we added in,
Did Bob ask that?
Yeah. that's why it's a Bob.
I think it's good he's not here. I think we can say the town is not going to sell carbon credits. That's not the business of the town. But I wonder what Bob meant putting it in.
Well, so I talked to the light plant director, Jason Bolger, this afternoon about it. And I was just saying to Brad Dye here that I should have asked him about it before I put it in the first place, but I put it in. And Jason said at a high level that he thinks like a high level analysis could be helpful. Because what did he say? He said it would put some of these decisions and goals in context with the cost of carbon. So kind of not getting into the nitty gritty about selling credits, but just how much are we moving the needle with some of these different efforts.
Could I ask where, I think I may be looking at an older
Oh, yeah.
version of the RFP.
Yeah.
So I don't have the language about valuation that
Yeah.
went out.
I don't know.
You might have an older one.
Yeah. And can we simply just say, no, we're not selling credits and
Yeah,
leave it at that?
yeah. I mean, yes, we can.
Well, I think what Jason said is, Jason Bolger's language is pretty good. As well, it helps prioritize,
Yeah.
prioritize.
We're not looking for in the scope of work here.
So,
Are we,
the analysis.
but are we trying to like frame it as the town's money per ton of savings or reductions? Or is this just an economic analysis in general?
Well, I think this is saying that this, take an action, getting people to ride the bus. What is the carbon saving of that?
And what's the
And
cost?
you don't have to get into it, you can't get it very accurate, but you can get it,
Sure.
the first plan didn't say this is worth, so many trees or, something, and I try and do that. It does help you, prioritize. Yeah,
Do you think? It could be helpful to help us prioritize, but we're not looking to get into so much detail
right,
that we're talking about. Credit.
Oh yeah, this isn't about the cost so much as what's the value of the reductions that we.
Yeah,
exactly.
and I understand the question, like, to try to get the clarification of making sure we're, talking the same language.
I think it's fine, the language the way it is, just state, no, we're not selling any credits.
Okay,
Right,
And it says in here prioritize, blah, 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 and it's fine.
okay,
yeah.
great,
You don't have to rewrite the thing.
yeah,
Do we need to clarify the intent of that language for this and other prospective vendors so that they know this other bit that Jason was speaking to?
I think we could say something like, no, yeah, I think we answer the question, can the town please clarify what it's hoping to accomplish with the carbon valuation and economic analysis? We're hoping to accomplish, putting our goals in context at a high level.
But it says that
Whatever it
already.
says there. It already says it.
It says we're trying to prioritize actions based on environmental and economic impact.
Yeah,
I
so I'll just say that.
think we should state that. What we're hoping to accomplish is as stated,
Yeah,
but no, we're not trying to sell any credits.
right,
Good, that was
Smart aleck consultant.
was it, well, this is hard one, not a hard one, but that was a hard one. That was one of the harder ones. The town has provided a number of thoughts around when to host certain community outreach events. Is there flexibility for the consultant to offer alternatives based on the town's desired outcomes, or are these required? Shannon and I discussed this and say, yes, we'd like to see what they have, like flexibility, pitch us what you got.
I would like it if we actually said the word yes, just right at the top of that.
Yes, there is flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's pause on 4. 5, RFP requests examples of prior reports and deliverables to be submitted with the proposal submission. Will links to digital examples be sufficient, or do we want full documentation? I think links are good.
Yeah,
Yes,
Right? That's an easy one. Okay.
good.
6 is fixing a typo. At an earlier version, I think I had October 10th, so that got held up there. Obviously, that is an error. Correct that. Insurance, we are confirm that with our finance, I think, so I think we're okay there. Yeah, and then number 8, would the town consider waiving architects and engineering professional liability? Yeah, these are, I'm just letting you know, these are the types of questions, but this is kind of an administrative question here. This one, number 9, Paul, was this what was it, what we were working on this one with you? The future goals. Can the town provide a bit more clarity on its expectations and desired outcomes around consideration for 2100 goals? This significant additional analysis effort that may not provide much value given the level of assumptions. I added this in, I can't remember who I was working on this with, on the committee, not you.
I think, don't recall. Paul, do you have, do you know how this?
Was that you, Paul? Can you hear us?
goals-
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't remember working on that. Um, and also, let's see, I haven't seen the final RFP. Is that somewhere in our notes?
Yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Okay,
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
Could we
I think,
say 2100 is a low priority?
But
yeah, I mean. None of us are gonna be alive in 2100, well, most of us.
all the time. It's the
Or
time.
anybody
You're right.
else?
I think
Now
our horizon should really be a little more of the 2050. In terms of emissions and, it just gets so foggy, the further you go out. That certainly is huge.
Is there any other document in which we've used 2100 previously?
that's Brad, that's Paul, what I think we were talking about. I just pulled up my email, Paul, about those goals, because I'm a little newer to this too, and I was trying to figure out where those goals were documented, and I think you mentioned page 20, of the 2020 Sustainable Concord report, but I didn't.
Yeah, I remember this. I think the original intent of the action plan was to plan out to 2020, like to 2050 or something. And I was making the point that we have to think longer term than that to make sure we get on a pathway that will let us, deal with climate change well beyond 2050. We just don't want a lot of short-term actions. We need have a well thought out strategy to get us to 2100 or beyond. And we want to make sure that the actions we take now do not rule out, future actions, do not lead to maladaptation. And so I think that's what my thinking was. What was the actual question again?
We provide more clarity on our expectations and desired outcomes around consideration of goals for 2100. This is a significant additional analysis effort that may not provide much value given the level of assumptions that would have to be incorporated.
Yeah, I think, what are the RFP asked for? Did it say anything? Was it specific for 2100, or did it say, and you should also consider 2100?
It seems to me it came up in the context of goals through 2050. And then
Okay.
it said consideration of 2100.
We do have it in.
So it's linked to the reduction goals. So I'm actually opposed to any discussion of 2100 reduction goals by anybody ever, anywhere.
Yeah,
Because we need to focus on getting to 2050.
right, I agree, and if there is discussion of it, we should maybe in the addendum, put that.
It wasn't referenced in the,
It's in the
in our
deliverables.
main climate action plan. It doesn't, the word 2100 doesn't appear. But if there's something about adaptation that we need to say that, we're gonna need to be paying attention to forest cover and a million sort of adaptation kinds of issues as the climate is gonna continue to do whatever it does between now and 2100. If that sort of is the issue, we could maybe say that's what we meant. We just want a qualitative sense of
Yeah.
what our objectives should be between after 2050.
Yeah, no, I agree
Not
100%.
having to quantify it.
So what is the deliverables set say about this?
Says, the consultant is expected to deliver an interim report, action planning to meet emissions targets and other goals through 2050 with consideration of at least 2100 goals. And it might say it somewhere else.
I think that should be, I think that we should probably cut that, and then I think some people are gonna look at that and they're gonna say. We don't know how to do that.
Well-
We don't,
Okay, so I agree with, I think it was Frank that said, you can't think about mitigation past 2050, because then it's too late. So we gotta, we have to get net zero or better by 2050. I think in terms of the adaptation, though, as you also pointed out, the climate, no matter what we do, the climate keeps changing. And we have to make sure that, perhaps a major emphasis is on short-term actions to 2050, but we have to realize that the climate is going to continue to change past 2050, in fact, well past 2500. So I don't know how to word this. We could just say, in terms of planning, 2050 is the end date for mitigation, but in adaptation, we would like to, we want to have most of the focus on shorter term actions, but realizing that climate change is going to continue, and we need to also think about what actions we take now, because it impacts the options we have available in 2100.
Yeah.
So what we would then be asking the prospective vendors to speak to is the resilience part of our plan. How are we devising resilience goals that are more forward or farther forward looking? Not necessarily climate, but resilience.
Right. I just think we have no idea what the world's gonna be like even I think even in 1 year, but after 25 years from now, we know.
Okay, sorry. No, we do have an idea what the climate's going to be like. We have these scenarios. We also have scenarios of land use, scenarios of all these things. So we do have some inkling of what's going to be like. And we want to be prepared for that. We want to be prepared for, every day in the summer is over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. How do we think about that now? And also in terms of vegetation, we can't plant vegetation that's not going to be able to, adapt to the future climate. We've got to think ahead what the climate's going to be a lot warmer, what vegetation is going to grow.
Do you feel like you have enough from us to synthesize something?
No, I
Not quite
don't,
yet?
I don't, and I wonder if it's helpful to, I think the last question is, overall, the town is asking for a lot for the allocated budget. Are there certain areas where there may be flexibility to adjust the scope? So I'm trying to think of, we tried to put a lot in here, we put in our kind of general wish list for the budget that we were appropriated, and it's like, I don't know what we can really cut at all, if anything. But I am not clear on the specific deliverable for that goal, and I know the turnaround time is short, so I'm not, but I think I am gonna have to be able to leave today knowing how to answer that question.
So I think we knew we're asking a lot for this question.
Yeah,
So I think we should acknowledge to them, yes, we agree that we're asking a lot, and we would like a creative plan for
Good
what
answer.
we can deliver towards what we're asking for in the RFP. But I still think if there's things like planning around 2100, which I don't know, I don't know exactly what it says, because I don't have the RFP in front of me. I think we should potentially cut that. I'm not saying it's not important that we do planning, but I don't think it should be part of this, much should be part of this exercise. The planning past 2050, we have a lot to,
Why can't we say something? Okay.
Go ahead.
Why can't we say something like, the emphasis of the adaptation plan is on 2050, but consideration of possible conditions of 2100 must also be considered. So, like, say the strategy to deal with future flooding is just, just to wall the town. Say the strategy just deal with flooding by 2050 is like wall off, downtown Concord. Well, that's a waste of time. It's not gonna help us past 2050. It's just perhaps one possible step. It might be a total waste of time. Maybe there are other things we should be doing instead. Maybe we should be thinking about, when the town master plan comes up, moving people out of floodplains. I mean, it's easy to take, dealing with 2050 is pretty easy. But I'm just concerned that it's going to rule out future actions. It's going to lock in longer term maladaptation. And like the city of Boston, they plan for 2070. And but also they talk, I think, also about 2100. So
Can you say a little bit more, please, about maybe give us an example of maladaptation which could have some kind of externality in that 2050 to 2100 timeframe? Is there something specific that we might be considering in town?
I don't know exactly what the town is considering for adaptation. Okay, but one example might be the seaport area of Boston. The short term.
Don't build seaport because it's going to be underwater.
Yes, it's going to be underwater, and the original plan was essentially every developer's on their own, and so some elevated and some didn't. And the problem now is everyone realizes that if the seaport's going to remain as a functioning district, the whole area has to be protected. You just can't have some buildings functioning and some buildings not. You need to have the whole area protected. And so it's now going to cost, several $100 million over the next 50 years to protect the seaport area, because they didn't think ahead of what's going to be like in the future. The developers were thinking, oh yeah, I only have to think 10 years ahead. So that's what they did. And we lost a huge opportunity there. Now it's going to cost the city, everybody, hundreds of millions of dollars to adjust to the new to adjust to the possible futures, no matter what the future is in terms of how much sea-level rise we have. I wish I could think of a better way of saying this, but the actions we take now have implications for the future, what our options are. And we don't want to rule out things that have been ruled out because we've taken a short-term action to deal with the 2050 situation, because climate change does not stop in 2050. It just keeps going.
Right, it doesn't stop at 2100 either. There's
Right.
So I feel strongly we should take the 2100 out of this. And I know that it could be that we make a couple judgment errors and we don't do some big project, but we gotta make our climate action plan focused on 2050. And 2100 is just a date that's out there. Concord's not gonna flood from the sea level rise until 2250. I don't wanna see 2250 in there either.
No, I agree, but
I think we should eliminate from the RFP in that addendum. That's my proposal.
Yeah, I agree. I think Paul is right that we need adaptation planning, the resiliency part of it, to go far enough into the future so that we're planning on all the rain we're gonna get for as long as any given building or infrastructure project we design is gonna last. But I don't think that is related to the 2050
Right.
timeframe, which is all about emission reductions. So I don't think we want to combine the adaptation
Right.
planning framework with the mitigation reduction date.
Yeah, our planning to 2100 has so much more to do with what China and the United States do between now and 2040, which we have no control over. And we don't know yet what's gonna happen to emissions. If, you know, our planning for 2100 really depends on the rest of the world.
Would a
And
fair,
I don't think it should be in there.
would a fair answer to this question then be?
You know, if you look at the playbook, okay, at the MAPC, there's a section I wrote there about adaptive management, which, about adaptation using adaptive management, which, might be worth looking at. But the point is, I think we all agree emissions, you know, we're gonna get that under control by 2050. But you know, what we do now impacts our options for dealing with the future climate. And I think we need some at least loose consideration of what's the climate might look like in 2100, and how to make sure that any actions we take now do not make conditions worse in 2100 in terms of adaptation options.
So can we get to what you would like to see there, while maybe backing off of this 2100 date without losing it entirely maybe? And say something like, something to the extent of, the town's focus is on what it needs to do by the year 2050. Hard stop. This deliverable shall be considered satisfied so long as the prospective vendor is proffering some level of analysis for longer term resilience and adaptation planning.
Okay, that would work. But I think we should definitely.
Does that work for you? Because then we're not locking into a particular date, but we are saying, hey, you gotta look at the resilience beyond 2050 regardless of what happens here.
Right.
Okay, that's okay with me.
Is that something that you'd be comfortable with?
The focus is on
Something along those lines?
2050, period. The deliverable will be satisfied if the vendor includes some level of analysis for
Consideration, yeah.
resilience planning. Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
For resilience and adaptation planning extending beyond this date.
Okay,
It's something to that effect, you know, shine it up however you feel. Fred, does that feel closer to what we ought to do?
I think so, yeah, I mean, 2030 and 2050, I guess wherever I said 2050, I'd insert 2030 as well, but the interim report we're asking for, is that gonna cover both mitigation and adaptation?
I mean, the whole plan has goals of on both
Right,
topics.
Right, but I'm just looking at, as a deliverable, we're asking for an interim report, maybe it would make sense to have an interim report on the mitigation targets through 2050, period, and then have adaptation options discussed. I don't know in which other deliverable, but in the next one, in the plan itself.
I think that's important to have a distinction between the mitigation goals and the adaptation goals, as was just suggested.
okay, so I think we're probably moved beyond answering the questions and now we're looking to modify the RFP as it is that? So,
Just, yeah,
we wanna change-
addendum to change that, that bullet.
and can you
Make it
repeat
simpler.
what you wanted to say? So what the interim report would be, or you wanna separate out?
I would just put a period at 2050. If you
So
want,
that one I think I have, but there is the,
I mean, I think in answering the question, you could say, please delete the language about 2100 goals, and then say, throughout the plan, everywhere adaptation comes up, we expect a longer term time frame. or something.
But we're not
something like
asking them to design, we're not asking them to figure out how we adapt in 2060, because we don't know what,
No,
we don't know what the world's gonna be like then.
Is that-
but an action plan might have an action that says, like the other one did, develop a plan for
Yeah.
adaptation through. I mean, it needs to be crisp, because you're just trying to deal with this RFP structure. So I think just first eliminating the 2100 with respect to mitigation. Just deleting the language there, and then just adding a sentence that there shouldn't be any time limit on planning for adaptation or something like that.
I mean, our plan for adaptation has so much more to do with the MVP grant. plus,
Right, yes.
Everything we learn, which is outside, which is a different set of people working on different stuff, really focusing on what's gonna happen to this region. Yeah, so having much consideration of anything beyond 2050 is sidetrack, is a for these consultants is a distraction. Fortunately.
No, but as Fran pointed out, I mean, our infrastructure lasts 100 years. And if you build something in an undeveloped area, you create development around it. Like we don't want people, moving into possible floodplains. Maybe they're not a floodplain in 2050, but they're going to be a floodplain in 2070. You don't want people in there.
And I hope that we learned this from the MVP plan.
So I don't know if I'm going to just answer the question or answer the question and also modify the RFP. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I think we'll talk to procurement tomorrow and see. I mean, if you're interested in this and you read the answers of the question, like, do you get the information you need? Do you also have to change it here? So I'm just letting you know, administratively, I'm not sure if I'll do both yet, or if I'll just answer the question. So I'll, let you know. And then but I appreciate it.
I mean, you could avoid rewriting the RFP by just simply saying.
Yeah,
The 2100 is not related to mitigation.
Yeah.
So just sort of point that out, that don't consider. Or you could say mitigation actions are only targeted at 2050. Leave it ambiguous about what 2100 is.
okay. I think I have the broad language. I thought was.
Catherine, did you have something else?
No, this is a great discussion. And I think it's a really important one. And I understand the sort of focus on mitigation and short term, but I do appreciate, Paul, your perspective. And I worry that if we don't sort of balance it and think about longer term goals, then we're taking our eye off the ball of sort of thinking about resiliency and adaptation and focusing on short term wins. Both are important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think 2100 appears in multiple places in the RFP. Notice.
I don't think it does.
Well, I'm looking at an old draft.
Sorry, I'm very busy. I think it just goes in that one spot.
Okay.
Yeah, one.
Okay, so I'm gonna say the focus is on 2050. This would be satisfied if the vendor did some level of analysis for adaptation beyond this. No, I know, sorry, I don't think I have it quite right yet.
I think this RFP is asking a lot from the consultant, and I don't want any consultant to say, this is something we don't do, but I'm not gonna respond to your RFP.
Understood, yeah.
That's why I like the period after 2050 and just drop it.
Do you wanna,
And I think our committee should continue to think about, how the world is evolving and what we need to do in terms of our building practices and in terms of our, et cetera. We're gonna learn more about, how to control floodwaters or what the floodplains will be. But I don't want this consultant who's helping us write our climate action plan to worry about that. Because it's a distraction for them.
Do you?
No, plenty of other places think beyond 2050, and the consultants are used to that.
I know, yeah, we have climate action goals the town has adopted. We're asking the consultant to help us meet that. And then adaptation goals, which are not as well, defined. We, the parts of the climate action plan are gonna help us adapt our community towards, in the next 25 years. But, I don't think it makes sense for them to think beyond that
Well,
in this.
also, it's beyond 2050 that we start seeing these accelerated climate changes. The changes up to 2050 are not that dramatic. It's after 2050 of the major changes. So I think we ought to just, a mission is through 2050, but climate change should be thinking beyond adaptation should be thinking beyond 2050. And maybe that's just the wording we use.
So
Mission,
I think that at this point, in the conversation, everybody has made their thinking and position clear. We don't necessarily have consensus among everybody. Megan, do you feel that you have the guidance that you need to get this done?
I think I'd like a vote.
Okay.
Does someone have a motion?
What specifically would you want answered?
I'd like a recommendation on how to adjust this RFP. I feel like, I think this has been such a valuable conversation, and I know it's late, so I'm sorry. But I think this is just it's a great example of hearing everyone and trying to synthesize it. And I'm newer at this, and I think a vote and how to proceed in this one important area would be helpful.
So does it create an issue or a problem for you to do either of these two things? Either to, in an addendum, strike out the 2100 verbiage and strike out that bit, or alternatively, to have some kind of clarifying language in this question saying, no, look, you don't have to worry about 2100 as specifically per se, just do long-term resilience planning. Are either of those
Yeah.
outcomes a technical problem?
I think I can work on the mechanics. I don't know if they're both exactly saying the same thing conceptually, and so I'm looking for some guidance of this committee on the intent
All
of
right.
this RFP.
Is the chair here a motion?
I would make a motion to simplify by just ending the sentence of 2050. And have the consultant focus their efforts on the things we can do to lower emissions and adapt in that time frame.
Okay.
Hmm.
In other words, to do that via an addendum to the
And
RFP.
addendum to the RFP.
Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay, so we would be in line for further discussion of that. It's past our scheduled end time. And we've talked about this for a while. I don't think anybody's gonna be persuaded off of what they're currently thinking. Is there any other discussion of that issue? Hearing them would be in line for a vote. All of those in favor of striking the 2100 mandate, leaving our goals at 2050 and doing so through an addendum to the RFP, please signify by raising your hand. And those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. Catherine, which side are you on this one, or are you abstaining?
I sort of want to abstain. I like the clarity and brevity of the language, but I would love to just have, something that talks about long range adaptation and resilience in there. Because because I agree, I think it's not gonna stop at 2050. But I understand Brad's position too, that it's a distraction. I just don't think it, you know, if I mean, I don't think it's gonna turn anyone away, and I think it's important, you know, on principle to have it in there. So I don't know, could I guess maybe I can abstain? I don't know if that sways the vote one way or the other.
You may abstain if you want to.
So another.
But I'm sorry, we're actually in the middle of a vote right now, so you do need to have a vote.
Okay, I'll abstain then.
Okay, so it's 3-2 with one abstention, the motion carries and we'll make that addendum. Do you
I think
feel
we're
like?
cooking ourselves, okay?
Orders.
Literally.
Just a minute, do you feel like you know what you need to do now?
I do. I have one more quick question on.
Let me get to Paul first.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I think that was rather limited motion. Because what we're really asking for is something more nuanced, that mitigation actions aimed at 2050, adaptation actions, emphasis on 2050, but consideration of the longer term.
Yes, however, on this particular matter, you and I voting for nuance have lost. And so I think it's best to move on.
Okay, well, I think the town is literally cooking itself. And it's really unfortunate. And thank you.
Go ahead.
Without changing what we just voted on, I think the letter, that the response that you write, Megan, could say exactly what Paul just said as an explanation of why we made this change.
Yeah, so
Attached, please find the change to the whole thing. We deleted 2100, however. We respect, you know, that time frame applies to our adaptation plan. Just by way of explaining it.
So work for you?
That timeframe applies to our adaptation plan.
Or our adaptation is planning for the longer, needs to be for the longer term.
Needs to at least consider the longer term, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Brad, would that be okay with you?
yeah,
Okay.
What else did you have, Megan?
Finally, they also asked if they said, although the development of a current year greenhouse gas emission inventory is not explicitly called out in task force, will the town require an updated greenhouse gas inventory, and if so, for what year? So,
we are planning to do another greenhouse gas inventory for 2025
okay,
in 2026.
right,
Bob Shetton wants to work on that, but we can help him out with different pieces of that. And I don't know if that's, you know, we have the numbers from 2022. I don't know for their climate action plan whether they need one, but they don't have to do one necessarily.
that's what we're, and I just wanted to.
Do we need?
So is the answer 2022 is what we expect the plan to include?
Yeah, you can include that. And
Or is the answer, we're gonna have 2026 numbers that you can stick in at the end in the final plan?
I don't know,
Or 2025 numbers?
geez, how long is it gonna take us to turn that crank? I think we'd be able to have 2025 numbers in the middle of 2026.
But what he's asking, what we need to consider for this
Yeah,
is what to say in this. Are we going to signpost for them that is something which they are not responsible for, and we will be producing, and we hope it's gonna be, or we believe it's gonna be in this time? Is that something we wanna be getting into for this exercise of answering this question? It might not be.
It's probably safer and simpler to just say 2022 is the inventory on which you should base your work. The existing 2022 inventory.
so where is that question?
It's number 10.
Number 10. Although, yeah, so we don't, there, we're not requiring them to do it. And so it's not, that answers the question. We have, I think we, answer that we have an inventory from, 2022 using the MAPC tool. And, we'll be working on one for 2025 next. But,
So,
I don't know if it's.
yeah, I'll just answer that, it's not part of this, so, thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we expect MAPC to bid?
I don't know.
They do, they help towns do this sort of stuff, right?
They have, yeah, I think, but I don't know. I don't know.
There was a list of people that,
One reason I was asking is that the big question you haven't teed up for us yet is there flexibility to adjust the scope since we're asking for so much?
right,
In the budget. And one thought I had was, we've asked them to develop a model, and run a lot of numbers and, rather than like inventing the wheel, they, different bidders may have their own in-house tools. But it may be that they could build on whatever MAPC did for us last, because all our data is like loaded up in their tool, right?
Well, the tool is a spreadsheet, we loaded it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but in general, it seems like one answer to that question might be try not to reinvent the wheel. Utilize sort of open source, publicly available tools and materials to the extent possible.
it's a great answer.
I mean, the MAPC is in the process of, or just finished or something, a plan for metropolitan Boston, which includes Concord. We're just a little small part of it, but there's lots, everybody's done this exercise a million times, so I think we ought to kind of alert these people to, we know you're not having to reinvent the wheel, you guys ought to be able to figure this out.
Yeah, I get,
Well, it's creative solutions, so like you were saying. Yeah,
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I would acknowledge that, we're asking a lot and that they should be creative and, address as much of the skills as possible. You know,
We're looking for creative proposals.
Yeah.
From people who know how to do this stuff
exactly.
really well. And have done it often enough that they can do it well, fast.
anything else to go through on this?
No, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll pick this up again next month, hopefully with a vendor in here. Excellent, let's move on to some brief, please, other updates. Brett, did the network geothermal talk happen?
Yeah, I
CMLP?
gave a presentation to the CMLP board. It went pretty well. I mean, Fran helped me put the presentation together. Brad helped me review it. It was, I think the presentation went well. There are people, there's a couple of people, well, the people on the board are quite interested in it, in this work. One of the takeaways was, they thought the idea of CMLP working together collaboratively at any level with the gas utility was ludicrous. And
Does that mean they want to do it themselves?
well, it just means that they think that's foolish to think about. I think that's unfortunate, and I'd like to have, conversations with National Grid and see how it might go, and not just dismiss it out of hand. Because I think there is a role in the gas utility for a number of reasons in helping to manage certain pipeline projects. You know, like, but that's further down the road. We didn't make any further progress beyond that talk. We haven't had a chance to get together. Frankly, I'm really glad Fran is on this committee, and I would love if, yeah, you know, if he helps to plan the next meeting and keep us forward motion, it will be very helpful, but we can work together on that. Been a busy month.
Were you intending to make your slide deck from that talk document of this committee for us to kind of like have on the record and have as a reference in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I attached it to the minutes last time, I think, or I wanted to attach it to the minutes, but it's certainly it can be used by the committee.
You could attach this meeting
Yes.
minutes.
Okay, sure. Will do.
Anything else on specifically Network Geo?
No,
Is there any next kind of step with that and with CMLP or not really?
I think we gotta talk to more people. We need to, they are very interested in MCI as a project. And the MCI engine, and I think maybe soon we should meet with the MCI. We should meet with Peter Lowett and Dan Gainsborough, the land planning group, and just see how do, you know, how does this work? How do we think further about this?
I owe you that email.
Yeah, I mean, I think a committee like this could say to our others in town government who are working on that issue, look, the town's already ruled out fossil fuel as a way to heat that place, whatever you build there.
Yeah.
And the town has an interest in not having to provide electricity to meet the peak of the air source heat pumps.
Yeah.
And it would be just eminently logical to put in a ground source heating system, which if financed over a sufficiently long period of time is probably also cheaper.
Yeah.
And as a climate committee, we recommend that you treat that as the baseline plan and assumption for all development in that area. And somebody needs to be assigned who's gonna build it, who's gonna own it, who's the planning group. I mean, they need to decide right off where they're gonna put the boreholes, and you know.
Well, there's another big piece of it, which is also, and who's gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
And I think that that's the other place where we come in, is that we wanna try to talk about state money for something like that, to view it as a pilot, yeah. So we do need to move on that. If there's no objection, let's take the rest of it, the MCI Concord discussion out of order. They do have, does chair objection? There is none. We do have, still on our docket, I mentioned this at our last meeting, the MCI vision. Documents are up on that committee's page. They're looking to move on their visioning for the site. So if you haven't already viewed that visioning plan and responded to their survey and gotten your input to them, you really should, like, tomorrow morning, first thing when you wake up.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna move on it fast.
They had a good presentation at the library. With the League of Women Voters First Friday thing, and it's exciting. They're really organized and I think thinking about this right. It certainly showed all the pictures have the rotary gone.
They do have, yeah, I noticed that.
That seems to be baked in, but that's just a simplified picture. We don't know how to draw it necessarily.
But the timeframe for dealing with the Rotary is like begins 20 years from now or something.
No, it
In the
has,
town plan, in the state planning, isn't it?
no,
It's getting
Been
sooner.
ramped up a little bit, closer to 10. we'd say.
but it might, if it took, you know, if it takes them 5 years to get the road done, then it kind of holds back. MCI contract development, you know, in that environment, at least. They have to be, there has to be some integrated planning.
Do we have anything to discuss regarding non-pipeline alternatives? Not for this month. And school solar is the last thing I've got on the agenda.
Right.
I have to say, I was at the chair's breakfast this morning, and to hear them talk about the status of the middle school building committee and the building project, to hear them say, we're turning off the lights, we're done, we're out of here so soon, when there's still this hanging out there and just getting started, it felt incongruous to me to hear that, to not to hear, but to feel kind of palpably that, that feeling that they were basically done.
Hmm,
So are they giving up on the solar canopies entirely?
I don't think so.
Okay, does that,
You know, I asked for an update last week and that's what I received, so I don't really have more information than that.
Okay.
That was, I think the report was, that presentation was put together at the end of September.
yeah,
And when I talked to Jason last week in preparation for this written report, that's what I received, so if something happened in the last few days. I may have missed it, but
okay.
So who gave that update?
I believe it was the
Let's see.
light plant director. He's been working on that.
This is not an agenda item, I did. If we, are we more talking more about the middle school?
Well, middle school solar project is on the agenda.
Yeah, but there was one item that wasn't on the agenda I wanted to give a
Well,
short update on.
what is it?
Was, well, we went up and talked to students at the high school about this, youth climate challenge, which would involve,
Would any of it involve solar?
it could, but it-
Okay, go ahead. It's on the agenda.
it's on the agenda. So Mass Energize got this grant to, run a program in high schools around Massachusetts. Thanks to Mike Barrett. And, Shelley and I talked to the Sunrise Group at the high school today. And they're interested in this. It might be a team of, we talked to like 6 students and, Rebecca Meeks, who's their, advisor. They're really kind of interested in doing this.
She said definitely interested.
Definitely interested. And that's a program that will, they'd have to sort of apply to be part of. There's some funding that comes to the school from it, small amount. It would be, there would need to be, somebody from this committee working with them a little bit to assist them in, planning a clean energy campaign. And, that would, the work, the real project the students would do is mostly in the, January, March timeframe. And then in April, there's a little conference that they would go to, and there would be awards ceremony, and some schools get awards for, good projects. But, we'd wanna work with them to, make what they do applicable to the community and, impactful. And it could be on solar, which would be my favorite. Residential solar. But it could be on other topics.
And would it be one of the two of you?
Could be both of us, or it could be other people,
Tag team.
could tag team it. Cause we have a lot to learn from them.
When is the money coming?
When is the money coming? The money comes, actually, the first money comes this year, I think it comes in, This is probably decided, I'm not 100%.
That's subject to whomever at the state government affecting the contract with Mass Energize?
Yeah,
Okay. Cool, that's great.
so I'm excited about that. As I think working with students, is both fun and, you know, has multiple impacts, get students that, learn a lot, and maybe go into careers like that, stuff like that.
Did you have something else to say responsive to Megan's update, the deputy town manager's update on the middle school solar? You were starting to say something.
I was starting
Let's do it
to ask
later.
whether the canopies are still envisioned to happen, and whether the decision is just a decision based on money. Because I really would like to see some parking lot canopies in this town. They have them in most neighboring towns.
Yeah, and I think I said, I think maybe I spoke too soon. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what was included necessarily. I can find it.
And if the bids came in higher than expected, is the solution to like rebid or buy fewer square feet of panels, or what's the plan? Or we just don't know yet?
I don't think a decision's been made yet.
Would it be likely that bidders would go in with a higher number than what's been authorized by a vote of the town?
That is a possibility.
It's a likely possibility.
I don't know the details of the term, can't speak to that.
Anything else to say on this? Alright, we have exhausted the agenda and we have no members of the public for public comments. I'll caution you before I recognize you, if it's not on the agenda, we really can't discuss it, we have
No,
to
it-
post it.
I want to go back to the part about non-pipeline alternatives.
Go ahead, yeah.
and, you know, gas expansion versus, you know, replacing with heat pumps to avoid pipeline expansions. I guess I think it would be a good idea if this committee could craft at our next meeting a resolution that would support something here, like it could support you know, citizen organizing in the direction of supporting this kind of thing, or it could be a request that the Board of Selectmen and the light plant each adopt favorable policies toward trying to support the citizens in those areas where they might be able to take advantage of non-pipeline alternative funding from the gas utility and so forth.
So there's already a project that three members of this committee are involved with members of Mothers Out Front and others.
It's stalled a little bit.
It's stalled a little bit. Would any of the three of you who kind of have touched that project here to talk at all about whether there's value in us having some kind of official resolution or something in support of that project? Is that a thing of value at this juncture? Or is there some other official act that might be more constructive?
That was a complicated question for this time, right?
Catherine's ready to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a definitive answer. I think part of the project that we're working on, and I've been very busy, so I've sort of feel like I've been out of the loop a bit, but was to actually garner some sort of official statement or support from the town. I think we talked as a group that it would be more effective if it actually came from, you know, town government versus the Climate Action Committee, which we're an arm of. But you know, it could be a step in that direction if that's like an intermediary step, and it's a pretty easy thing to do amongst ourselves. I agree. I don't think we have time. It's late to do anything, but maybe we can just put it on the agenda for next month to
Do
discuss.
the three of you wanna maybe huddle. And either amongst yourselves or with that whole group. And figure out exactly what you wanna put on our agenda for a month from now.
Doesn't have to be two
It
people.
should be,
Maybe three. It'd be up to three.
Are we allowed to huddle as three? Yeah, happy to do so if.
Technically or not,
Yeah.
We're not?
no,
Two.
it's not even supposed to be two
If it's assigning people to work
on
on
something.
something,
I see.
it's a subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
If one person is gonna work on something. Doesn't mean you can't talk to other people, but like.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of it, there's a little nuance there.
Okay,
So,
so the way to solve, go ahead.
just clarifying, so if I have a question and I'm emailing Brad about it.
Sure.
that's
Okay.
allowed.
Yes, yes.
Direct, when you're
Yes,
just
so that's
asking a question to people, but you shouldn't say that you and Brad are going to go do task A together.
Or if you do, it could be a subcommittee and.
Yeah,
We don't wanna do that, for something like
I
that.
was gonna class on Saturday, I felt.
Yeah, that's a good thing to ask about and if it doesn't
It's-
come up, because it does come up a lot and.
it does come up a lot.
Right.
And there's nuance and it's hard to explain and then everyone's nervous about emailing. and
Yeah.
It's just, it makes
It
communication.
makes it challenging, yeah.
So to get around this issue, would one of the three of you or Fran want to volunteer to write something and bring it to us for our agenda in November? For us to either take an official action or to encourage the selectmen to take.
if Fran was to write something, I would read it,
I'll write something.
yeah.
That works, correct?
Yeah.
Fine.
Great, let's do it that way.
Generous of you, Brad.
You've got your first homework assignment, congratulations.
Thank you.
It only took until 9:25. Okay, so there are no members of the public here unless Shannon, you're not a your town staff, you don't count as public.
Yeah.
So there are no members of the public to take public comments. If the chair hears no objection, we'll pass over that on the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting next November 15? That's November 15 is wrong. November 19 at 7 PM in this room. Chair, hear a motion? That was a motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.